before you took your first breath, God gave you your value. You are his. In the Bible, we go to truth, right? That's God's word. It says you are beloved. It says you are his. It says you are chosen, redeemed. It says that you are a masterpiece. It says that you are fearfully and wonderfully made. That is your identity.
What's up, podcast fam? Welcome to the Uniquely Wired podcast, and welcome back if you have been with us for a long time now. I'm your host, Anani, and I am super excited for today's episode. As you can see, we have a very special guest. And as you can see by the title, we are going to talk about navigating adulthood as a neurodivergent. And I'm just excited for my guest to share her story and answer some of the questions that I have for her. So, without further ado, I want her to share a little bit about her and what she is doing in the community. So, Denea, please introduce yourself.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on here. And also, thank you for amplifying neurodivergent voices in a positive and realistic way. My name is Denea Marable, and I am an autistic individual with ADHD and OCD. And I am also a wife, mom. Most importantly, I am a believer and follower of Jesus. I'm a Christian author, Bible teacher. I love teaching people how to study the Bible.
Wow.
I'm a seminary student. I'm trying to think of one fun thing that I do in my spare time. Other than I do try to volunteer locally in different organizations here that actually work with autistic adults. But other than that, I do Kimpo. I'm a yellow belt currently, and I have about
Wow.
90. Yeah,
Can
I
you
have
can
about
you
90
explain that a little bit for the listeners that don't
Kimpo.
know?
Yeah. Yep. So Kimpo is a mix of like jujitsu, karate, and very traditional Japanese martial arts. So
Wow.
going through like different sequences, different moves, takedowns, and sparring. Um, it's been really good for me.
That is
I love
so
it.
cool.
Yeah, I love
Wow,
it.
I love that. So, are any of your children neurodivergent themselves?
So, yep. So we have one, although we have one child. He's Luke. He's 7. It feels like we have like 5.
Oh,
So
yeah.
he was screened for autism when he was 3.
Okay.
Um, he didn't screen for, or he was evaluated for autism. He didn't screen for it, but we are still open, trying to navigate if it could possibly be ADHD.
Sure.
We're still very open
Yeah.
in
Yeah,
figuring that out.
absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing that and being so vulnerable and also
Yeah,
taking your time to be here. I know that it's a lot. It could be overwhelming. It could be overstimulating. But you do so much and you carry it so well. I know that there are moments behind the scenes and the unseen, right? That people don't see. But
yeah,
we know that there is one that always sees it and sees it all, and
yeah.
that's
Amen.
our Lord and Savior. And I'm huge. And I mean, at this point, because you've been following me for a while now, I'm very bold about my faith. I'm
Yeah.
very open and been in church my whole life. So to me, it's my life. It's
Yeah.
literally my lifestyle. um
Hmm.
so anyways, that's super cool, girl. I could never for the life of me, okay, try and do some karate moves. Look, I'm gonna be right on the ground, okay? This is where like people have their talents, they have their specific callings. People need to stay in their lanes, and
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't something, well, it's kind of something that I've always wanted to do,
Okay.
but I became sober from alcohol in 2023. It's a
Wow.
big part of just my neurodivergent story, but and so when I became sober, I was like, all right, I need to find some type of outlet. And so I initially started to do kickboxing.
Okay.
And then
Mm-hmm.
I was doing that for like 3 years and I absolutely loved it. And then my doctor was like, because I started getting like all of these very random injuries. And she was like,
Mm,
you need to do something that is a little bit lower impact. And
sure.
so that's when I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll give arts a try. Not that it's easier, but it's
Mm-hmm.
just not that like short burst of high
Mm,
intense cardio. So it's been really
gotcha.
good for me.
Okay, that is amazing. So I don't know if that was your hidden talent because my ice-breaking question, which this is something new I'm doing this season, I am asking my guest speakers,
Hmm.
an ice-breaking question. So the question is, what's one hidden talent you have that most people don't know about?
Mm. Oh my goodness. Okay.
I mean,
This is
I didn't know that about you. So to
I could have used
me,
that.
I know, but that's okay. You pretty much answered it, but I didn't know if you had already shared that with other people. So,
So I have. I was going to say something else. So I don't know how we figured out that I could do this, but I can solve a like a jigsaw puzzle upside down. I don't know how we discovered
what?
we I could do this. It was never something that like I was just thinking about and I was just like, I wonder if I can do this. But I just
Stop
started doing it
it.
one day and my husband was like, did did you just solve that like upside down? I was like, yeah, it's pretty easy. And then like we started to see like if I could do it, like was it just that puzzle or is it something that I could actually do? And it's something that I've done like consistently.
Wow. That is so
Yeah.
awesome. I love
Yeah.
that. That's so cool, girl, because me and puzzles are
No.
we're not friends. We're not friends. We're not friends. But anyways, let's get into the questions. I have
Yeah.
4 questions for you. But the first one is, what has been one of the biggest challenges you've faced as a neurodivergent adult? And how have you learned to navigate it? Right? Because we're talking about navigating adulthood. I talk
Hmm.
so much about childhood, teenage, right? I've had guests, but I haven't had many guests that are actually neurodivergent themselves. Um, I've had, I'm trying to remember who I had. Well, I did have my pastor's daughter. She's in her 20s, and I can't remember who else that I have that is actually autistic. So, yeah, how, if you could answer that question.
Yeah. So, like I said before, I became sober from alcohol in 2023. That was one of the biggest reasons why I was such a binge drinker was because I did not know how to take care of myself as a
Mm,
neurodivergent adult. I've always kind of figured that I've experienced this world differently ever since I was in middle school. Like I had that awareness. I had that awareness that like holding eye contact with people was not comfortable, didn't feel natural for me at all. I had the awareness that I tend to navigate social situations differently than my peers. I knew that I tended to take things very literal. I've always been a very literal thinker and processor. And just how like I process information, I had that awareness. I couldn't articulate it, but I knew it. And in college, I discovered alcohol and I was like, oh, I'm going to use this. I still hadn't been diagnosed, but I kind of had a thought. I was like, I think I might be autistic. But when I look in the media, I don't see me. Like I don't see my version of autism. I don't see people who look like me be autistic. So I was really confused, but I discovered alcohol and I was like, this makes all of the I didn't know what they were back then, but all of these sensory meltdowns, it makes it so much easier to navigate. It makes navigating social situations so much easier. It makes navigating autistic shutdown and burnout so much easier. This, it kind of like calms and quiets my brain, my ADHD brain. I didn't know those sensations and experiences then, but that's what I was using alcohol for. And so I did that for like 10 years. I was a heavy binge drinker.
Wow.
And finally, I just had our son, and I was in therapy for postpartum depression. And I was talking to my therapist, and she was like, "Have you ever thought that you might be autistic?" And, I told her the same thing. Like, I don't see myself in those autistic stories that are portrayed in the media. So I kind of think I am, but also I'm really confused. And so she encouraged me to get an evaluation. I did not listen until 2023. I continued my own
Wow.
navigating neurodivergent adulthood with
Sure.
alcohol. And
Mm-hmm.
and finally in 2023, like, God had been lovingly convicting me. He was like, "Danae, let me be your peace. Let go of alcohol. Let me be your peace. Let me help you navigate this. I want us to do this together." So I finally let it go. And that's when I was faced with the fact that, like, I had to learn how to take care of myself and honor myself as an autistic individual with ADHD and OCD. And that initially was so difficult because there tends to be this very heavy focus on neurodivergent childhood, which is good. But I'm always like, what happens? What do you think happens when those neurodivergent children turn into adults? Like, their neurodivergence doesn't just go away. There are
Right.
not a lot of resources for neurodivergent adults. And so it was a lot of stumbling. um, I also, got the diagnosis for ADHD and OCD. So initially, there was a lot of resentment, bitterness, and shame. And God was just like, "That's not how I created you. I
Yeah.
created you fearfully and wonderfully made." Like, the shame narrative, that's not your identity. And you need to give yourself patience. You need to begin to be a student of your neurodivergence. And that's kind of what I started to do. I stumbled on like breathing techniques. I tend to get very dysregulated in transitions, whether it's transitioning tasks or transitioning from like the car to the house, or
Mm.
transitioning from the car to a store that I've been in multiple times before. But it's
Yeah.
just something about like that switching that tends to dysregulate me. So I had to learn a lot of like breathing and mindfulness techniques in therapy. I had to learn how I process information, because a lot of times my brain is so noisy, and something can happen like during the day, but I don't process it at night until it's quiet, because I don't know how to process it. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It just kind of sits in my
Yeah.
brain as like this noisy. I don't know how to explain it, but I had to learn to journal. Like, I need to journal to be able to process what I go through. I had to learn how to identify like safe people to talk to about what I go through, because I would just keep stuff in. That's part of the reason why I was such a huge binge drinker. I would just keep stuff in, and then I felt like alcohol was my release, which it was not. It was a very false and fake release. But I had to learn how to process things. I had to learn how to advocate for myself in everyday
Mm.
situations, and situations that I've been through like before that I didn't, advocate for myself. I had to learn how to now advocate for myself. And thankfully now, I mean, there's still a lot of work to be done, but I think now there are a lot more resources for neurodivergent adults. There's still work to be done, but there's definitely a lot more than there was like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So Instagram, social media has been a huge part of me learning how to take care of myself, because, you see other people, other adults who were diagnosed in adulthood. And you kind of have this moment. You're like, "Hey, wait a minute. I thought that was just me. You mean like that's you too?" And just being able to have those conversations has been so validating. And it's
Yeah.
definitely been a part of the way that I take care of myself. I feel like I
Wow.
rambled, but I hope that
No, you did
that
not.
answered your
No, no, no,
question.
you did not. Girl, I could ramble. Please, that I have to like cut myself short every time. No, absolutely not. You were not rambling. I think this is all valuable information. Um, by the way, for the listeners or those watching on YouTube, I am just getting to talk to Danae.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
just so you guys know. But wow, how amazing is it that you I'm assuming you feel like you eventually found yourself
Yes.
getting this diagnosis, and not just autism diagnosis, you add on ADHD, OCD, which I personally don't have OCD, but my mom does
Mm.
diagnose OCD.
Mm-hmm.
And it was difficult growing up.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
difficult growing up for many reasons. I mean, now my mom is more easy with my kids.
Mm-hmm.
But with me and my brothers growing up, we could not sit in the couches. We could not eat in the dining table. She had a separate dining table in the kitchen. Everything had to be miraculously spotless.
Yeah.
You would come to my house, you would think my mom has nobody living there because everything had to look specific way. And I mean,
Yeah.
it was good and bad at the same time, but because there's pros
Yeah.
and cons to it.
Mm.
But anyways, it's just beautiful to see how you have learned to navigate. You know, do you think if you wouldn't have, and this is not a question on here, but do you think if you wouldn't have done your binge drinking,
Mm-hmm.
do you think you would have ever figured out your diagnosis?
I'm sure somewhere along the line, God would have led me to it, but I cannot, discount or discredit how he used binge drinking and
Mm,
into something that could be turned into good, because sobriety, and I knew that when I went into sobriety, I was like, I need to do something drastic. Like, I don't just want to say I'm sober. I want to do something drastic, and I want to have accountability. And so I went into AA, and
okay.
I learned so many things about advocating for yourself and becoming your true self so that you don't have to numb the experiences that you go through. Um, that was such a huge part that catapulted like my self acceptance journey of
Mm,
being neurodivergent. So I'm sure
mm,
like God, would have eventually led me, to this discovery.
absolutely. Hmm.
But it's just been such a huge part in me becoming myself and accepting myself.
Wow. I just love it. I love to hear stories and learn from autistic voices and
Yeah.
not other voices.
Yeah.
Especially
Yeah.
with everything going on now, which I'm not even going to get into because I'm not even giving it time. But
Mm-mm.
it's just like, you know, it's the people that are now walking the walk
Right.
that are doing the talking.
Right.
And it's frustrating because I'm like, get autistic adults
Mm-hmm.
on the podium. Get
Yeah.
autistic individuals that are living this since they were young or perhaps were just diagnosed.
Yeah.
Get them there to share their stories of success. Give
Definitely.
families hope other than
Yeah.
giving them shame and guilt, right? And
Yeah.
so,
Yes.
because when I hear things like negative things about autism, I'm like, maybe there has to be a different name for children that have more severe profound autism, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's something else there, right? And this is just my thinking because I'm like, I have my kids and I look at them and listen, I am beyond thankful, and not to brag, but I'm thankful that my kids don't have aggressive behaviors, right? My son does tend to do his little thing where he like pinches me and things like that. And I think for him, it's more of a comfort thing, not so much that he just wants to be aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. That's just my thinking. And I'm like, I wonder, are we just misdiagnosing some of these children? Like, I don't know, because I'm like, it clearly looks so different for everyone.
Mm.
And But that also is not to discredit those of us that our children still have challenges and they still have
Yeah.
struggles in their own ways.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I hate to see that people look at autism as something that needs to be cured and taken away. And, we're not looking at other ways to help them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean it shifts the blame. Like I had this thought. I was like, okay, this is not what we asked for. We asked for support, not blame. Like this is not this is not actually what we asked for. But I think, I mean, part of the issue, especially, I love talking about like the intersection of faith and autism, or the intersection of faith and disability, or neurodivergence. And I think part of the problem has to do with toxic theology that has been taught, because I cannot tell you how many times um, a fellow Christ follower has told me that I need to denounce being autistic, or they've quoted certain scriptures, commented certain scriptures from the Bible under like some of my videos. And my thing is, we love saying, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Oh, we love telling people you are God's masterpiece. But when it comes to autism, like it's almost like we're like, no, not there. And I'm like, well, the problem is the toxic theology that you've been taught, not God's word. Because either we believe God's word, all of it, or we don't believe any of it, because we don't have the authority to take bits and parts and pieces of his word that support our opinion and our argument. But oh, no, 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 we're going to leave the other stuff because we don't have the authority to do that. So we have to understand that scripture has full authority, and it says that his creations, we have been fearfully and wonderfully made. That does mean all of us. And just because we are having trouble seeing that, it doesn't mean that it's not true. I think that, like you said, autism, it presents differently, right? And so it is a spectrum, and there's clearly so much that we still have to learn. I've seen posts that say, autism didn't exist back in my day, and it's like,
It's
it
always
did.
existed. It always existed. I don't understand why something just
It
randomly is
was
going to come out of
there.
nowhere.
Yeah, it was there. It has always been here. We just didn't know enough then to be seeking a diagnosis.
Hmm.
We thought it
Hmm.
had to look one way, but now we know it can look. We still have so much, clearly, that we need to learn about autism.
Look, I just took a deep breath. I just took a deep breath because it makes me sick to my stomach. And this is the thing, Danae. I don't want to associate myself with people that don't accept my children
Mhm.
or look at them, oh, in a way that, oh my gosh, you need to denounce that. You need to
Yeah,
rebuke that.
yeah,
No, I'm not interested. You know
yeah,
how long it took me to get to the stage of acceptance?
yeah,
Okay. And granted, I'm
yeah.
thankful that it came sooner than other families.
Mm-hmm.
Some families are still trying to
Trying
accept
to,
it. And
yeah,
then,
yeah,
boom, you get hit with the lies and the negativity. And please, do you think we want to keep hearing it?
yeah,
We're past that. And this is my thing. What are we going to do at this point, even if I find the cause? Like, what am I
yeah,
going to do? They're still autistic.
yeah.
So, therefore, listen, I respect everyone. I know there are families that want to know the cause, that want to know the reason. Like, I get it and I respect that and I see them. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I made a post about that. Same thing with those of us who want to move past guilt and shame. Like, that's
Mm-hmm.
it. So I don't know. Here we go. You see, this was me rambling, going through a whole different
But it
topic.
needed
But
to be
anyways,
said. It needed to
yes,
be
and I think
said.
we need to provide more resources, fundings.
Yes.
We need it. We need it. Period.
Yeah.
Um okay, so question number 2 is how
Hmm.
has your neurodivergence shaped the way you view independence, relationships, and daily responsibilities?
Oh my goodness.
That's a load
I mean,
question.
it is because it it impacts a lot of what I do. Like doing the dishes um is not just doing the dishes for me. Like first of all, I have to give myself treats to do things like the dishes or to do laundry. Like I'll give myself like little pieces of dark chocolate, like kind of like have that to motivate myself. um because it truly does impact everything that I do. Like my having ADHD, doing those everyday mundane tasks, like okay, sure, we could say of course nobody likes to do the laundry, that okay, but with people with ADHD, when you're talking about doing mundane tasks like those, it can feel overwhelming, it can feel threatening, and you have to do it multiple times a week. And so it is something you
Talk
that is
about it. I
regular, right?
have a
And
whole
so
bin filled with laundry in the laundry room.
yeah,
It's been there for like 4 days.
yeah. I mean, that's very realistic for,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
people who process information like we do. And so I've had to kind of learn how to do little things like that, how to trick my brain into getting like those dopamine hits that it is so often looking for. Like I have to learn how to treat myself into doing those mundane tasks. I tend to feel very overwhelmed when I am looking out at my week and I know that I have just multiple things to do. Like it is always amazing to me when I'm talking to one of my friends who's just going through the list of things they need to get done, and they're like, "Oh, but you know, I can do that on Tuesday, and you know, maybe I can do that on Wednesday." And I'm like, "How do you do that?" Like when I when I get a list of things, right, or demands that I have to do, because that's what a to-do list is. That's how my brain looks at it. It's a demand.
Yeah,
There are multiple demands that I need to do. I tend to get very overwhelmed and it absolutely feels threatening for me. And so I have to visually put it. I have an app, I think it's called Timo, Tiimo. I put all of my like tasks for the weekend there because I need to be able to visually see it. If I don't, it's not going to get done. So I've had to learn how to work with my brain and honor the way that it receives and processes information into everyday tasks like that. And then if you throw in, you know, being a parent, you know, there's a separate list. There's a separate list of things
that's a
that
whole
you have
different
to do
thing.
that you have to be accountable for. That's a separate list of demands. And so I have learned, yes, to do these tasks. I have learned to work and to honor my brain. But a big part, I think, of neurodivergent adulthood is honestly just me learning truly what grace is and
That's
learning
good.
to really seek and appreciate and to be in awe of the fact that God is not like aloof. He's not somewhere high up in the clouds, but he does life with us. And so his grace, it takes me from moment to moment. You know, there's that scripture in John, we go from grace to grace. And
Mm.
that grace is kind of that supernatural presence that we have of God in our lives. And so that then also means that I have to realize that I cannot do this in my own strength. I'm not supposed to do this in my own strength, right? It's too heavy. It's too difficult. God already knew that. So that's one reason why he supplies us with his grace in those everyday moments. Like I've learned to kind of appreciate that, because if I don't, then I start to like think about self-sufficiency and I start to think, oh, I should be able to do this. And why can't, you know, I start to talk to myself and be very judgmental and critical. And that's not how God created me to talk to myself, right? Because he doesn't talk to us like that. And
Exactly.
so a big part of this learning how to do these everyday moments and even learning how to navigate relationships in my life is giving myself grace. And I've also learned to tell people hey, I'm neurodivergent. Like I will tell people that in a minute. 10 years ago, 5 years ago, maybe even 2 years ago, I might not have. But
Mm,
I have learned that in my friendships, yes, you need to know that I am autistic, that I have ADHD and OCD, because that's going to give you more context into how we
yeah,
can be friends.
exactly.
My husband, I mean, we met each other in 2007. So he's seen me through all of these like iterations and different
Mm,
versions of myself, but we had
yes.
to, sit down and have that conversation, and we still have to periodically, because I will have to tell him like, okay, so you can do this, it seems like pretty easily, flawlessly. I can't. So
Mm,
can we break
mm-hmm.
this down, or can,
Mm-hmm.
I've had to be more vocal, especially with our son being in like sports or having friends groups. I will tell the coach, or I will tell his friends' parents, hey, I'm autistic. So if you see me with headphones, it doesn't necessarily mean that I don't want to be bothered. It's just that I'm overstimulated. If
Wow,
you
that's
see
so
me
good.
with the
Mm-hmm.
fidget, it's not because like I just think that what we're doing is just so boring. It's actually because I'm trying to emotionally regulate myself. So I have learned to kind of insert that into the relationship, like that awareness into
Yeah,
relationships.
yeah,
I've had to learn to insert that into my tasks every day. Like, Danae, this is difficult for you because of
right.
the way that your brain is, putting that awareness out there has been really helpful.
Well, that is so brave. I mean, be proud of yourself, girl, because it takes people a while from what I've
Yeah.
heard. Um, I love to see moms online that are just so open about their diagnosis.
Yeah.
And I remember when I got my ADHD diagnosis last year, um, a little after my 30th birthday,
Hmm.
I was just, I was overcome with so much overwhelm.
Yeah.
I think because I started reflecting on my childhood and how
Hmm.
academically I struggled so much, and I never understood why. Like,
Yeah.
literally, they will pass me with a C or a D. They felt
Hmm.
bad giving me an F. But if they
Hmm.
could, I'll pass with Fs because
Yeah.
not that I was stupid or
Hmm.
whatever word you want to use. So I don't like to use the D word, but it's like it makes so much sense.
Yeah.
It made so much sense. And I think I was just overwhelmed with, frustration, questions.
Hmm.
And it took me a little bit, even till this day, I still kind of like, ugh, I wish I'm able to do this. I wish
Yeah.
I'm able to go back to school, you
Hmm.
know, and see if I could be given the accommodations that little me needed.
Yeah.
And it's so much. So, you know, I didn't know if I wanted to share about it. And I did.
Hmm.
I eventually did. And I spoke about it on the podcast. And the listeners walked me through pretty much every stage while I was getting the diagnosis. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of moms began to discover themselves after I shared my story. And they were like, "Oh my gosh, like how did you get it?" I said, "Look, I completed a assessment online of lots of
Yeah.
questions and my therapist asked me the same questions. I didn't have to go through a
Hmm.
specialist or a doctor. Like, I mean, you can if you want to have papers and all the things, but I think it's valid
Yeah.
if like my husband self-diagnosed himself autistic.
Hmm. Hmm.
Granted, he's 41 now, so he just feels like there's really no need in going through a doctor and getting a diagnosis. He's like, I just know I am.
Hmm.
And, it's amazing to see. But like you said, you and your husband, you guys are, he has seen you in every stage of your life for so
Yeah.
many years
Hmm.
up to your diagnosis. And so with my husband, I think because he doesn't have like an official diagnosis, I
Hmm.
think I'm still learning to navigate him
Yeah.
and understand him because as an ADHDer, and I'm combined ADHD, so listen, I could be all over the place sometimes, and then
Hmm.
I'm like, I'm the planner. So if we're
Yeah.
doing something, I am planning things like I'm 10 steps ahead
Hmm.
from someone else that might also have ADHD, but they struggle with that. To me,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I already know what I want to do next week.
Hmm. Mhm.
or this is the way vacation should go. I need to have a schedule, like you
Yeah.
said, the visual. I need to
Mhm.
have that visual. Even if we don't get to do all of it,
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
want to know that this is something that I can look forward to rather than
Mhm.
just showing up and being thrown in the lion's
Yeah.
den. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's amazing, and I appreciate you sharing that. And that'll take me right into my next question, which is what tools and strategies, which you have just shared a few, or supports have been most helpful for you in navigating and managing adulthood as a neurodivergent.
Yeah. I mean, definitely therapy. And, I definitely want to say self-diagnosis completely valid.
Yep.
Whether you are self-diagnosed or for anybody listening or watching this, because I do have a quote unquote formal evaluation. However, that that took a very long time, and I think it took a very long time because the phrase that I kept hearing that absolutely irritates me is like that I'm high functioning autism, or well, you have a degree, how could you be autistic? Well, you're
Yep.
married, you're a parent, you're this,
Mhm.
you're that. And
Mhm.
so I want to say that self-diagnosis absolutely valid, because
Yes.
like you start to generally, even if, right, we can't articulate the sensations and the experiences. I've found in so many of my conversations of adults who are diagnosed later in life, there's some type of awareness that we're different. Like, like we might not know the terms and what we're experiencing, but we usually have an awareness, and trust your gut, trust yourself. So therapy has absolutely been beneficial for me. I have always been in therapy. I was diagnosed with like depression, autism, or I'm sorry, anxiety when I was a teenager, when I was like 18, 19. And might have taken a year off or two of therapy, but I've somewhat always been in therapy. And I think one reason why it's so beneficial for me is because of the way that I process information. Like I said, I will just sit with stuff. Like I will sit with things that have happened to me, that I experience, that I see, and then it almost dawns on me like, oh, I can actually talk about this. Or
Right.
oh, I can tell someone, hey, I didn't like when you did that. Like therapy, talk therapy has been so beneficial for me. um Definitely, I've talked about like the breathing techniques. I try to do some type of breathing exercise throughout the day, not just at night. That's one thing of like being a binge drinker, that I would always just wait till the end of the day
Mm.
and to kind of like relax. And but it's like, okay, you have the whole day to somewhat, decompress and to kind of like recenter yourself. We can meet with God at any time of the day. And so I've learned to incorporate that. I've had to put it on my phone because I will forget if it's not if I don't get a reminder or an alert.
That part.
Yes. I have on my phone moments of like deep breathing exercises,
I love
mindfulness
that.
technique. Or I'll have on my phone a reminder to stim,
Mm.
because when I was younger, I used to like rock myself back and forth a lot. And
That's
I
my
never,
son.
like, no one never ever told me like, hey, don't do that. But I think I just didn't see anybody else doing it. So I was like, oh, I'm wrong. Like I shouldn't be doing this. And so I think I have kind of suggested to my brain that stimming is wrong. And so it
Mm.
doesn't come like natural to me. Like I won't stim unless I like put a fidget in my hand, or unless I have a reminder on my phone to stim. As a
Mm.
neurodivergent, it is so helpful for me to stim because it helps me regulate. Emotional regulation is pretty hard for me. And so stimming is something that helps. Breathing exercises. I do grounding techniques like that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5 things you can see. 4, what is it that you can hear? 3, you can feel. 2, that
Mhm.
you can smell. 1, that you can taste. Like I do that a lot because it grounds me. It keeps me in the present. Um, Other things that have been helpful, I've talked about my Timo app. has
Yes.
been
Mm-hmm.
very helpful. A game changer for me was switching from digital clocks to analog clocks. I read somewhere online that people with ADHD, we tend to experience time differently. And I
Mm.
was like, that tracks. Like time blindness. Like I can be doing something for 1 minute and all of a sudden 15 minutes have flown by. Where has the time gone? And so putting like those analog clocks around the house has really helped me kind of somewhat stay on task. Again, I have to give myself grace because you can do all of the
Yep.
coping mechanisms and you can have all of the support, but you know what? You're still neurodivergent. Like
You're
that is
still
that is
neurodivergent.
what
Yeah.
that's what when I was diagnosed with ADHD, I chose to be on medication and she was like, "Now, you're going to take these and you need to know you still have ADHD, right? Like you
Mm-hmm.
still are going to have that full ADHD experience.
For
When we
sure.
can, we try to have somebody come in and help like with cleaning,
Mm.
because that is a mundane task that you have to do regularly. So therefore, my brain naturally repels doing it. It's not that I don't think it's important. It's just that dopamine that my ADHD brain
Thank
is looking for.
you.
It's not going to get it with sweeping and clean. So when we can, we try to have somebody who comes in to do that. Meal prepping and planning. I want to say I absolutely hate it. Most times I actually cry when I am doing it, but it is so
Mm.
helpful because I don't have to think about, what am I going to eat? What are we eating for dinner tonight during the week? Um,
Right. It is helpful, but I agree with you. Like, I get to a point where like I'm in a funk and I've been feeling like that this week. I told my husband, I said, we need protein. We
yeah.
have no protein in the house. And he's like, well, we'll figure it out. I'm like, what does that mean? Like, are we going to order again? Or like, what are we doing? Because, everything is so expensive these days that I'm like, do we
Yes.
spend $80 getting groceries or do we buy food all week? Like,
Yeah.
what are we going to do? So, literally, we ordered yesterday. I don't know what we're doing tonight. We might end up doing the
Yeah.
pizza in the freezer. But, like, you know, people don't understand. People don't realize it, especially, it's not that you're being lazy.
Yeah.
Genuinely, it's hard. And,
Yes.
I'm doing all these things in the morning. I go and get my kids from school. I get home and all I want to do is just doom scroll on social
Yeah.
media, throw
Yeah.
myself on the couch.
Hmm.
After I look through my kid's bag, like physically, my body just becomes tired right away.
Yeah.
And you would
Yeah.
think I've done so much. You would think I'm lifting weights. I'm no, like it's literally the easiest things that is for other people. The things that
Yeah.
are easiest for other people, it's hard for us. And it
Yeah.
takes extra strength. And sometimes, I have no choice, and I'm sure you have no choice sometimes where you just have to push yourself and just do it.
Hmm.
Whatever that looks like. But yeah, it's hard. And there are weeks that I'm like, I don't know if you get that I just have this adrenaline that I'm like, I can conquer the world. I can do this. And I know some of it for us women is hormonal, of
Oh
course.
yeah. Yep.
And I try to tell myself, okay, and that's where I try to find and figure out what is it? What's my ADHD? What's my hormones? What's my
Yeah.
feelings and my emotions? But when you
Yeah.
have those two things and they're clashing with each other, it's so
Hmm.
difficult. It is so difficult.
Yeah. That's very
Yeah.
true. And it presents itself right in everyday tasks. So it is something that you are consistently confronted with, right? Like you
Yes.
have to consistently navigate that. And
Hmm.
I mean that's one reason why I'm just
Absolutely.
a big fan of just grace because
Yeah.
we live, in a mostly neurotypical world and we are trying to go about doing just everyday things
Hmm.
with our, the way that our brains process information. Like you can use all the coping skills. You
Yep.
can, sometimes I feel like I've had that tendency to be like, oh, well, if I had, this support and this support and this support, and don't get me wrong, yes, advocate for yourself. Yes, you should absolutely seek multiple forms of support. But I think it's also good to have the awareness that at the end of the day, you're still neurodivergent.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. And that takes me to my last question, which is what encouragement would you give to other neurodivergent adults, um, or even parents raising neurodivergent children about
Mhm.
embracing this journey, embracing themselves, embracing their children?
Yeah, I think I would say so for adults, right? Let's just say that you maybe suspect that you might be neurodivergent, but you're like, oh, I'm 50. Like, does it matter? Yes, it does matter because I don't think we are ever too young or too old to figure out better ways to support ourselves. Right? Like it doesn't matter how
Absolutely.
old you are.
Mm-hmm.
You can self-diagnose at any age. You can seek a formal diagnosis at any age. And I think that once you get that diagnosis, whether it's self-diagnosis or diagnosis or formal, I think it is good to just sit with the information for a little bit because just like you said, I experienced this, and I think one of the reasons why I felt so overwhelmed when I got my diagnosis is because I went immediately into problem solving mode. I didn't take any time to just reflect on, how did this show up in my childhood. Like I just like zoomed past on and I was like, okay,
That's that
problem.
ADHD. That's that
But
ADHD in full
yep,
effect.
yep.
You're
And
trying to solve
so
everything. Mm-hmm.
yes. Oh my goodness, yes. And so I think it is so okay that after you get that diagnosis, just sit with it. You don't need to act right away. I think it's the same thing with kids. Like as a parent, when you get that diagnosis, honor the feelings that come up. There's most likely grief. It's valid. There's most likely you might be feeling anxious or you might be feeling scared. You might be feeling like angry. Honor those, bring them to God. He's not going to judge you for those emotions. He wants to help you navigate the emotions. He wants to comfort you in the midst of that. He wants to show you that, yes, he is in the midst of neurodivergence, right? He wants to honor the feelings. Don't numb them, acknowledge them. And if you're not ready to go into problem solving mode yet, that's okay. Just sit with it. And then I think when you go into unmasking, when you start to look for ways to advocate for yourself, when you start to look for more support, I think it is so okay to start small
Yeah.
and to just go from there.
Yeah.
Because what can happen, I think, sometimes is if we think that if we're not doing this big grand gesture of unmasking, it's not like worth it. And that's so not okay. It's the little things like going into the store with a fidget, or buying earbuds. Like, yes, let's celebrate that. Or asking someone, hey, do you mind turning that down? Buying something, a piece of clothing that doesn't feel itchy to you, but nobody knows that but you, that's big. Like celebrate all of those moments and
Mm.
then build from there. And then the last thing that I would say is to know that something that supported you in one season, it's okay if it doesn't support you in another season. Like if you find, in one season that you have this STEM item, or maybe you've advocated for yourself at work, right? And you've asked for an accommodation, and all of a sudden, like it's not honoring the way that your brain works. That's okay. Like you can switch it. It is your basic human right to be supported and get what you need. And actually, this is the last thing. I'm sorry. Please know and understand that there is nothing shameful or wrong about your existence. I talk to so many neurodivergent adults, including myself. We have this commonality of we thought that we were wrong. Not like we did something wrong, but like our existence was wrong. And that's because there is a huge shame narrative around neurodivergence every like most places that you go. But you have to understand that you are not how people react to your autistic or neurodivergent ADHD, OCD. You are not, your value is not tied up in how people respond to you. Your value has already been spoken over you. Before you took your first breath, God gave you your value. You are His. In the Bible, we go to truth, right? That's God's word. It says you are beloved, it says you are His. It says you are chosen, redeemed. It says that you are a masterpiece. It says that you are fearfully and wonderfully made. That is your identity. Shame will come because we live in a broken world, right? We will still experience moments of shame. And I am sorry that those moments come, but they will still come. We live in a broken world. This week is a perfect example of that. But when it comes, it is so important that you know that you have a choice to accept it or not. Go to your identity, and that is God's word.
Yes. Yes. Can y'all hear this? I don't know if y'all can hear this, but I'm a clap. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I'm like, okay, what else am I adding? Okay, because it's just perfect. It was perfectly and beautifully said. I love when you said about the when you went and spoke about the children.
Mm-hmm.
It's true that grieving comes.
Yeah.
Um, and I think we can easily become so wrapped up in it.
Mm-hmm.
And when you mentioned that how you got your diagnosis and you were jumping right into problem solving mode, it took me
Yes.
back when I got my kids diagnosis, especially my daughter's, who's my oldest, back in 2018. I get her diagnosis, and the first thing I do is just get on hustle mode, trying to get her services, trying to do this, that I didn't really get to process and grieve
Yeah.
and go through it, through the emotions, because I was always on high alert. I
Mm-hmm.
need to do this, I need to do that. And
Mm-hmm.
so that was a lot for sure. So
Yeah.
I would say to those of you that are listening or watching, take that advice, pause,
Yeah.
pause, and absorb it all in. You don't have to
Mm-hmm.
accept it right away. You
Yeah.
don't, because
Yep.
you know what? It might take you some time. Everybody processes things differently,
Yeah.
autistic or not, ADHD
Mm-hmm.
or not, OCD or not, depressive or
Yep.
not. You're just going to
Yep.
process things differently, and that is okay. Don't try
Yeah.
and copy how this person processes this.
Yes.
Don't try and copy what this person is doing with their child or
Yeah.
themselves as
Yeah.
an adult. No, you
Mm.
have to live your own journey and your
Yeah.
own self the way God created you to be and the way He wanted your life to be. That's it.
Yes. Yep.
Um, that's all we
That's
could
so
really
good.
do. That's all we could really
Yeah.
do. So, Danae, I just want to thank you again for your time and, just your knowledge, your insight on adulthood neurodivergence, because I feel like, and you said this in the beginning, there's not many resources for
Yeah.
adulthood neurodivergence out there. And I said that because I've met
Yeah.
families that have adult children on the spectrum, and they have many challenges when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
behaviors and things like that. And so they're in their late 20s, mid 20s, and parents are struggling because there's nothing out there for them. And so I agree. There should definitely be more out there. I think we have a lot for children, but again, there's still things that could still be added or still going.
Yeah.
But definitely we
Yep.
have to advocate for the adults that are either being placed in a home,
Yeah.
in a living assistance facility, and because parents don't know what to do. Parents don't know
Mm-hmm.
what to do. And to be fair, some of them are much older, which is very difficult. For parents, it becomes difficult. So I think definitely we need that support. We need that those resources to get flowing
Mm-hmm.
for adults. So, anyways, I hope and pray, like I always say, you guys, that you enjoyed this episode. If you found it um encouraging, make sure you leave a 5-star review. If you're listening on YouTube, subscribe, share. If you know someone who's getting a diagnosis of
Yeah.
autism and they're older, share this episode with them. If you're a
Definitely.
parent, be encouraged. And this is an example here. This is just one of many examples of autistic adults that are living a life, and they were able to live independently. They were able to do things that maybe the world thought, or even professionals thought, they couldn't accomplish. So yeah, I'm super excited. I will leave Danae's information down below. Her Instagram, if she has a Facebook, we'll share that down below. Make sure you follow her journey. She's very inspiring, very encouraging, very positive. If you need that, because we all need that.
Yeah.
You guys know I'm big on
Yes.
sharing the positive side of autism about my kids. It just helps me. I don't want to have to go back and revisit the negative parts.
Yeah.
I want to go back and know that I documented things that made my kids happy and showed
Mm-hmm.
the world that there's happy in the autism as well.
Yeah. Yes.
It's not just
Yep.
all negative.
Mm-hmm.
um
Yeah.
Anyways, thank you guys again for listening, and I will see you again on another episode.